Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope all of you guys are doing well. Today I wanted to do a top five list, and these are the five movies I would personally like to see a remake of. Now, I know when we think of remakes, we're like, no, it doesn't need to happen. But from time to time, there are occasions where a remake can do very well. Films like The Fly, The Thing, The Blob, those being remakes and doing really, really well. Then you have remakes out there that kind of have, they're kind of split. You have those who love it and those who hate it. Remakes like My Bloody Valentine, Friday the 13th, and Fright Night. And then you have remakes that are literally a shot by shot and has become probably one of the most awful remakes ever, and that being Psycho, the Psycho film that came out in 1998 with Vince Vaughn. Excuse me. So, you know, remakes can be a hit or a miss. And, remakes can be a good thing because they bring new fans to the original movie. And a great example I can use is an interview with Robert Englund, who even mentioned about why the Nightmare on Elm Street remake did not do too well. And I feel like a lot of remakes benefit a lot because like I stated, they're bringing a new audience to the original, and when they realize that the film is getting a remake or the remake is out, and they watch the original before watching the remake, they decide to not go and watch the remake because they have more of an appreciation to the original, and it just brings a whole new generation to that original film. It's like that with The Crow. Nightmare on Elm Street, and just the list goes on. But to me, I feel like there can be some films out there that could have a modern day. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to take away to the remake. It's just going to update, or to the original, I mean. It's just going to give you a modern day of the version of the story with just some differences. But for me, what makes a good remake is having callbacks to the original. Now, you don't have to overdo it, but just little nods here and there just shows the appreciation of the original source material. Not only that, I feel like if you were to contact some actors and actresses from the original film who may still be around to be in the film, I feel like it is just another sign of, you know, showing that you care for the original. You're showing your respect to the original and kind of having those nods to the original, whether that's a cameo or, well, if that's you're giving somebody from the original film more screen time or giving them a small supporting role. I feel like that's what truly makes a remake really well. And not only that, but you could possibly tie in the remake to the original and kind of make it its, like a sequel remake type of thing. I think sometimes that can work depending on the source material. But I decided to pick five films that I feel like would be cool to see as a remake. So let's get started. So we're going to start off with one that's probably going to give me a lot of flack for, and that is the Monster Squad. Yes, I would like to see a modern day version of this. Uh, but I kind of put my own twist on it. I would make this film, of course, a modern day, but I would bring some of the original actors back to kind of tie into the new characters. And of course, have the references as like the parents get involved and, look at each other. And, one line could be like, man, I have some serious deja vu with this, and things like that. It's kind of like a nod to the original. And I think you could just add just a little bit more, the horror aspect into it. Um, I wouldn't make it like kid friendly to some extent. Maybe a little gore to some extent. I'm sure I'm going to say that a lot. But I think the Monster Squad. Don't get me wrong. This film, it's a classic. To me, I feel like it still holds up in some way. But to see a modern day version of this would be really cool. And if you were to do a remake, you don't have to do a film. You can actually turn this into a TV series with the original cast as, adults. I mean, think about it. We really, in some way, yes, we did see Dracula get, I think, staked by Van Helsing, but they went through the portal. We don't know what happened afterwards. Same with the Frankenstein's creation. Is he alive after going through that portal? We don't know. So I think it would be cool to, incorporate what happened, maybe tie in some new, creatures and characters from the original, black and white Universal films, like The Phantom of the Opera or The Bride of Frankenstein and things like that. So I feel like the Monster Squad could have a really cool, interesting story, tie-ins and callbacks to the original. Maybe, like I said, maybe possibly turn it into a TV series. It's hard to say, but Monster Squad is definitely one I personally would like to see a somewhat of a remake of. Next is The Last Starfighter. So, video games is a really big thing to this day. And we've had a couple of video game related movies, especially during the 80s with The Wizard and uh, The Last Starfighter, and I feel like the Last Starfighter remake would be really really interesting. You could, again, same with like the Monster Squad. You kind of can turn it into a TV series in some way, or do a tie-in to make it like a remake slash sequel of some sort due to the source material. But I feel like with video games today, I think like a modern day version of this would be really cool. Maybe you can even tie a story in where someone, kind of like the same, I guess you would take inspiration from both this and Tron, you know, where, you know, the character, gets sucked into a video game, but what you could do differently is have maybe a character from that video game come into our world, I guess kind of similar to what the Neutron film is like. If you guys seen the trailer it dropped today, something in that style. But if you weren't doing that, what you could do is, just have someone who takes over an old arcade, you know, restores it, and there's this one game that everybody likes, and we find out that those aliens are real, and kind of put your own spin and twist on this story in a modern day setting. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, The Last Starfighter is definitely my choice. Here's another one I'm gonna probably get a lot of flack on. Little Monsters. Yeah, so to me, Little Monsters, I think would be a fun remake. If I had the opportunity to remake this, I would probably turn it more into a horror film than I would to some extent. We would have some horror elements because I mean, if you rewatch this film and you kind of get more towards like the end of the movie where we have Boy, those scenes can be really creepy, especially the score towards the end of the film. And to me, I think a remake would be really cool because you could really get dark with the story. And I think what I would do differently is give Boy a backstory. I think that's how I would start the film off, is learn what happened to Boy. And not only Boy, but kind of see how some of the monsters came about, especially Maurice. In this film, and I just think it would be fun to do. Maybe get Ben and Fred Savage to come back to make small little cameos, or have Fred Savage and Ben Savage kind of be the father and the uncle in this film, in some way. Try to bring back everybody and incorporate them, little throwbacks to the original and things like that. So yeah, I feel like the Monster Squad would be a really fun one if given a modern day remake. The next one here, there was rumors about a remake happening, and then I think there was rumors about a TV series happening, and none came to full circle. But I feel like this movie definitely needs a remake. Maybe not bring the same characters from this movie into a remake, but like some of the characters during those stories and things like that. But A League of an Extraordinary Gentleman, I feel like definitely deserves a remake, especially in a modern day. I think would be really cool, because I feel like the characters in a modern day setting could be descendants, and due to them being descendants, have gained this type of, I wouldn't say ability of some sort, but they kind of do, especially with characters like Dorian Gray and Dracula's Bride and The Invisible Man and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, kind of like with those characters, what made them unique, it was in their blood and was passed down. So like the character that would be a descendant of Dorian Gray basically, gets hurt, he heals. You could put like a weird twist on it, because we all know how the story of Dorian Gray goes. Dracula's Bride, so we have somebody who's able to have the same, in a way, have the same, abilities as a vampire, but can walk during the day. Sunlight doesn't bother them as much. Kind of similar, like to like Blade in some way, or Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. His descendant is able to have some ability with the two personalities and things like that. So I think it would be pretty cool, but I would like to see a remake of this. I think a remake is long overdue. Considering this film did not do too well, I feel like we need a remake to kind of give that story and, that film a chance, bring a lot of people back to seeing that if you were to do a remake, because I think at the time of that film's release, I think it was competing against other films that became bigger films, and that kind of, lost its, mojo, as I would like to state. But over the years, it did grow a cult following, and I feel like there are some people out there who do like the film, like myself. Excuse me. And last but not least, this is a film that was intended to get a remake. Now, this is a remake. This is a remake to an old black and white version with Jack Nicholson, and then there was rumors with, that there was going to be a remake with Josh Gad, but it never happened. I believe it's Josh Gad, but that is Little Shop of Horrors. I would like to see a remake of this, but I would like to see more of a horror version of this. Kind of give it that Repo the Genetic Opera feel, where it can really be dark. I mean, when you revisit this movie is pretty dark if you think about it, with the plant eating people. But I think you can get really creative and gruesome with it. I know Rick Moranis is kind of doing his own thing, so you really don't have to bring him back. But you can, if a lot of these actors and actresses who are still around from the original film that don't want to participate in this, that's fine. What you could do is just have nods to these actors. Maybe a picture of like Rick Moranis on the wall of the main character. Oh yeah, that's my uncle, or that's my grandfather, or something. I think it would be cool, like a really cool nod, but kind of ties in to the original and becomes a remake sequel, which a remake sequel is basically you're remaking the film, but you're throwing, like, a great example I can use is the Naked Gun remake. It's a remake, but it's also seems to be a sequel from what we see in the trailer. So that's kind of what you could do with this, I feel like, because I think the setting in this film takes place like back in the day. I want to say like the 40s or 30s. So I feel like maybe even the 60s. So I feel like you can, give it a modern day, but kind of like make those characters kind of like the grandchildren in some way. I don't know. I'm probably talking out my ass at this point, but yeah, I would like to see a really cool version of this, but put more towards the horror aspect of it. Like I said, kind of similar to like Repo the Genetic Opera, where that's horror and it's also it's also a musical, and this is a musical, of course, but I think it would be cool to have both aspects of it. But yeah, those are the 5 films that I personally would like to see a modern day remake of. And if you couldn't do a modern day remake, then maybe give us like a cool like sequel of some sort, or some of those could be turned into a TV series, because there are films I feel like can be turned into a series as a continuation due to the source material, because I feel like there's a lot more that expands in that world. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. You guys are more than welcome to give me your opinion on what you think of my choices for remakes, and what are some of your favorite remakes. For me personally, I absolutely love The Fly. That is one of my all-time favorite remakes. Came out the same year I was born. It's the film that got me started as a fan of Jeff Goldblum, and yeah, I'm waiting for that movie to hit 4K because that movie would look absolutely amazing in 4K. Um, but who knows? It is a Fox title, I believe, so that may never see the light of day. I do want to eventually get the Scream Factory releases of that and the second film, and then I think there's the third black and white Fly film because I have the two originals, and then I think there's one more. So that's definitely on my wish list of films to get because I do want to do a franchise review in some way. But nonetheless, thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, like, subscribe on Film Talk with Mikey. Till next time, we'll talk films. You guys have a good one. Take care. We'll see you next time.